Hey everyone, and welcome back. You guys know how much I love digging into all those things that can help us really unlock our potential. And I think today's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it's funny how often we talk about introspection being this key to personal growth, but when you really get down to it, what does that actually look like? Hopefully we can kind of unpack that a bit today with this deep dive into that article you sent me, how introspection powers personal growth.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll admit, when I first saw that title, I was like, oh, okay, we're thinking about my thinking. But this one, it felt like it went a little deeper, don't you think?
Absolutely. One of the first things that stood out to me was how it defined introspection, because it's not just about analyzing, your emotions. It's more about understanding what's really driving those emotions.
hmm
It's putting together those connections between our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors.
Okay, so instead of just being like, I'm stressed, it's more about figuring out, why am I stressed?
Exactly. And once you understand the why behind it, you can start to make some real changes, right? And that's where the personal growth comes in because you're not just reacting to situations anymore. You're making conscious choices based on this self-awareness.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like recognizing those patterns in our lives, like good or bad, so we can start to make choices that line up with who we actually want to be.
Yeah, exactly. And having this deeper understanding of ourselves, that's really the foundation of any personal growth because it lets us do things like set boundaries,
Yeah.
build healthier relationships and actually go after what we want in life. And this is where I thought the article got really interesting because it starts to talk about the importance of leisure and idleness when it comes to personal growth.
Yeah, it almost felt like it was giving us permission to just chill out, which we all know can be kind of a struggle these days.
Right. We're constantly being told to be more productive, have a side hustle, make the most of every single minute. But this article, it argues that downtime isn't just enjoyable. It's actually really important for creativity and for problem
So
solving.
you're saying our brains need that time to just kind of wander and make connections without us trying to force it all the time.
Exactly. And there's actually some pretty fascinating science to back that up because when we relax, our brains release dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that's linked to pleasure and reward.
Okay, so dopamine, that's the feel-good chemical, right?
Exactly. And when we get that little dopamine rush while we're relaxing, it actually encourages our brains to keep exploring, and it helps us make those connections that lead to creative breakthroughs. It's like our brains are being rewarded for taking a break.
That is so cool. And it totally makes sense. Like, I always get my best ideas when I'm in the shower or out on a walk. It's like my brain finally has the space to just breathe for a minute and do its thing.
Precisely. The article even mentioned this one study that found something like 20% of creative ideas, they actually happen during mind wandering. Whoa, are you serious? That's crazy. I am definitely going to be scheduling in more do nothing time from now on.
It really is an investment worth making. And that actually leads into another really important point from the article, which is that time itself is a luxury that we need to invest wisely.
Time as an investment. That's kind of interesting. I never really thought about it that way before.
Right. It's funny, we always talk about time management, but this article wants us to think more about time investment. Like, it's not just about having that free time. It's about how we choose to actually invest that time in ourselves.
And one of the best investments we can make is in those moments of intentional introspection, for sure. The article talks about things like journaling and mindfulness exercises as ways to cultivate that self-awareness. So it's about making time to actually reflect on our experiences and figure out what our values are and really explore what's going on internally.
It's like a little self-check-in. It's like, where am I at right now?
Yeah.
And do I need to make any adjustments?
Exactly. And the best part is that this whole self-awareness thing, it doesn't just benefit us individually, right? The article even argues that it has this ripple effect on society as a whole.
Okay, now you've got me really intrigued.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this connection between introspection and a better society. What's the link?
Well, just think about it this way. When people are more self-aware, they're more likely to act in line with their values, right? So they become more thoughtful, they think for themselves more, and they're less likely to just be swayed by what everyone else is doing.
So instead of just going with the flow, they're making these conscious choices based on, what they actually believe in.
Exactly. And when you have all these people who are taking the time for this kind of self-reflection, it can actually lead to some really positive change on a much larger scale.
Wow, that's amazing. So introspection is not just about personal growth, and it's about creating a more thoughtful world, like a more compassionate world.
Yeah, exactly. And it all starts with each of us taking the time to understand ourselves a little bit better.
This has been such a great deep dive, honestly. Some of the things to think about. We talked about how introspection is more than just thinking. It's about understanding why we do the things we do and using that to grow. We talked about giving our brains a break so they can actually be more creative. And we talked about how self-reflection, it doesn't just help us. It actually makes society better as a whole.
I love that summary. And as you keep exploring this whole introspection thing in your own life, here's a little something to think about. The article really focused on personal growth, right? But how else could you use this? Could it maybe make your relationships better? Could it help you at work? It's something to consider.
You know what? You're right. This is like opening a door to a whole new way of seeing ourselves and the world around us. As always, you guys can find a link to the article and everything else we talked about in the show notes. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And remember, even a little introspection can make a big difference.